So I was just listening to Tim Pool, and it still, it I can't understand how people like Tim Pool who study politics all these analysts on YouTube, the Sticks and Hammer, really smart guys, they still think that the reason Republicans are ineffective is because they're incompetent and or they're only worried about uh, getting back in office. When in fact, and he presumes that most Republicans actually have conservative values, that they actually believe anything they say to the public. When not, the fact is, most politicians at the national level in every first world country, and even to a greater extent in third world countries, 90% of them are high IQ, sociopaths, psychopaths, or otherwise just completely amoral. They're only there for money and power. All right. More and more Republicans are coming um, into the field now who aren't completely corrupt thanks to Trump, but it's still like 90% of Republicans. And even the ones that, played like Trump, they're not out there making waves, are they? They're not out there calling out the corruption in both parties and talking about the real essential truth of American politics, which is it's the high IQ psychopaths and sociopaths that rise to power in the intelligence agencies, in the State Department, in all these various, Department of Education, the Federal Reserve. These are people who are willing to murder children, rape children. They don't care. Why was Pedophile Island a thing? Because you need to prove if you're like a nouvelle riche, like nouvelle riche is how you spell. That's how you pronounce it. I don't know how to spell it, but I don't know how to pronounce it. If you're newly wealthy, you know, like Elon Musk, and you want to become part of the Insiders Club, the first thing you do is you go to Bohemian Grove and worship Moloch, a pagan god described in the Bible as evil, and the people who worship Moloch in the Bible, their city was destroyed by God, right? So he's pretty close to it's that worshiping Moloch thing at Bohemian Grove, that's satanic adjacent. And then you get into the satanic, straightforward satanic stuff, that's like level two. And then murdering innocent people or helping to cover it up. And then there's like raping kids. And these are all hoops you have to jump through to prove that you can be trusted, to prove that you have no conscience, to prove that you'll never become a whistleblower. Okay? Because if you went to Hellfire Island and raped some 12-year-olds, you're never going to become a whistleblower because they'll magically find that one video of that one Republican senator raping a 12-year-old and release it online and and pretend it was leaked from some outside source or something. Maybe if another country, they'll blame it on Russia or something. Said they somehow got a hold of it or whatever. I don't know what they'll do, but they with all this they get dirt on them. They want the power elite to be able to blackmail them because that's the only way they can be trusted. They want to do it. So even if they don't want to, you know, fuck a little girl, if they want power enough, if they really lust for power and all they care about is power and they have no morals, they'll do it. Even if they don't like it, just to prove that they are completely trustworthy to the high IQ sociopaths and psychopaths that rule behind the scenes, like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts. The people that really hold power, we don't talk about them. They're behind the scenes. They have wealth in the trillions of dollars and they keep it hidden. Okay? Um, but yeah, that's how the world really works. And the problem is that Alex Jones used to explain this sort of stuff, but now he's like just kind of semi-retired. And even when he did make these points, he would make a fool out of himself so often, and was so terrible. He lowered morale. He like would cry like and shit and yell and scream. He wasn't a leader. He didn't inspire confidence that we could actually defeat the deep state. Trump did. But it's like, does he have to tell you everything in order for people to understand it? Does he have to? He had to lay it out for everyone that the intelligence agencies are corrupt. Does he have to lay it out for everyone that the majority of Republicans and Democrats in office are high IQ psychopaths and sociopaths before the majority of people understand it. It's like even among people that are awake to the deep state, only a tiny percentage of them realize that most of the politicians, 80, at least 70%, if not 90% of them, do not give a fuck about anything they say. They only give lip service to the values. They don't give a, they would easily switch, they would have run as a Democrat and said all the right things as a Democrat if that would have made it easier for them to win. And it's not like they go in with good intentions and become evil. No, like corporations and people who are networking with high level CEOs, they talk to the CEOs and the CEOs say, "Hey, you can make for a great politician. You can make us a lot of money. You could become very rich, very wealthy because you go into Congress. You can make millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, like Nancy Pelosi or any of those other congressmen did, because insider trading is legal for congressmen. That's right, it's legal for congressmen. Congress decided that's legal for congressmen to do insider trading. Who would have thought? And do we do anything about that? Do we even talk about it? Do we even put a stop to it? No. No. What about the fact that these politicians get paid $500,000 to give a speech to Goldman Sachs? Their payoff. You know, do we do anything about that? No, we're not doing anything to actually tackle the corruption issues. We're not actually working. And the reason they keep us fighting about race and gender and all these other bullshit topics is that so we don't come together and say, hey, let's get rid of the corrupt Democrats and the corrupt Republicans. But since the Republican voters and Democratic voters are fighting each other in this stupid culture war, not that the issues aren't important because they are, but because they're so in that echo chamber, they never ever gets down to sit down and say, hey, what do we agree on? What could we do together to tackle this corruption? Because Republican voters won't admit that most Republicans are corrupt, and Democratic voters won't admit that most Democratic politicians are corrupt, or they don't realize it. So nothing is ever done about corruption, and thus nothing will get done unless people start realizing the truth, and we get a bipartisan movement to get rid of all this corruption. But now it's a right-wing viewpoint to point out that the federal government is highly corrupt, when it used to be a left-wing viewpoint to say that the federal government was highly corrupt. Back during the Bush era, Patriot Act, all that sort of crap, the Democrats were highly against the federal government. They didn't like the executive orders George Bush was using to pass legislation without Congress unconstitutionally and expanding the power of the executive branch way beyond the constitutional limits. Democrats used to talk about the Constitution. They used to be for the First Amendment. Like they started the free speech movement in the 1960s in Berkeley. And up until like 2015, the vast majority of Democrats, like 95% of them, if you ask them their stance on free speech, they say, I believe in free speech. I believe in free speech. But that all changed when there was this huge cultural shift, and now they're against free speech. And the problem is they're not thinking. They are part of an ideological group. They're in that tribe, and if you want to survive in a tribe, you have to agree with the tribe, or else you get excommunicated. And it's in our evolutionary psychology to want to be a part of a tribe, and to avoid getting excommunicated from the tribe, because that means death. That meant death for millions of years. Being excommunicated from your tribe, being kicked out of your tribe, meant death. So we want a sense of belonging. We want a sense of purpose. We want a sense of making the world a better place. And you can get the illusion of all that by participating in politics and either being pro-Republican or pro-Democrat instead of anti-establishment. And you can be anti-establishment conservative or an anti-establishment liberal, as long as you realize that the vast majority of elected officials in the United States Congress are psychopaths and sociopaths. And you understand what's going on in Bohemian Grove. You understand what Pedophile Island was all about. You understand the Bilderberg Group. You understand the Club of Rome. You understand all the stuff that Alex Jones used to talk about when he actually made good points, which he did a lot of when he wasn't making a fool of himself. But yeah, that's all I have to say for today.